Today I'm going to show you how I paint crashing waves in watercolor. I'll tackle the scene step by step, first with the sky, then with the distant water, then the central dark wave, move on to the foamy crashing waves, along with the shadow of those waves, then to the settling water between the middle wave and the small wave on the sand, and then paint the small wave on the sand with some shadow. What I have done is I have drawn the picture on the watercolor paper and then gone over it with masking fluid. I didn't have to use masking fluid. I could have painted the watercolor and then gone back afterwards with white gouache or white ink to reestablish the highlights. I did not apply masking fluid on the breaking waves. I'll paint around those. Using the chip brush, I'm laying down some clean water so I can paint both cerulean blue and cobalt blue wet into wet. Even though the photo doesn't have clouds in the sky, I'm choosing to add clouds. I've mixed up the gray by combining cobalt blue, raw umber, and a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm now painting the distant water. The colors that I'm using are a combination of phthalo blue and cobalt blue. What I'm trying to do here is to do a dry brush technique because this adds sparkle to the water. If you want to see more on how to do a dry brush technique, why don't you consider watching my video titled Paint Sparkling Water with Dry Brush in Watercolor Tutorial Part 3. Though the valley of the distant water looks fairly dark, it will actually dry lighter. I'm dropping in a little Serpentine Genuine to capture the green color of the water wet into wet. Notice how I'm avoiding the section just below where the dark center wave will be. I could have painted all the way down to the top of the breaking wave, and then added another layer of paint to make the center wave quite dark. Some artists would say that this can help with unity in a painting. I'm now starting to drop in the dark colors of the center wave. I'm using a combination of Indanthrone Blue and Ultramarine Blue, followed by turquoise, and then back to Phthalo Blue. It is important at this point to not paint down past the tops of the crashing waves because I want to preserve that white paper for the shape of the white foam of the waves. I've started off the breaking waves by wetting the paper along the top of the waves with clean water. This will allow the paint that I'm about to apply to flow. Now I'm using Manganese Blue Hue, Cobalt Blue, and Serpentine Genuine for the wave. Painting the waves is a combination of wet onto dry and then softening the edge with clean water. I use that technique throughout this painting. I'm using Indanthrone Blue into wet Manganese Blue Hue to start to deepen the value. Though you can't see a bright green color in the wave in the photo, I took artistic license and added green gold to show the color of the wave when the sun shines through it. After applying some very light lavender, I'm starting to cover the settling water with clean water so I can work wet into wet. The gray is a mixture of Manganese Blue Hue, Cobalt Blue, Raw Umber, and Burnt Sienna. I'm dropping Manganese Blue Hue into the gray, wet into wet. As with the large crashing wave above, I'm avoiding painting over the small waves in the foreground. I'm dragging a brush of clean water to blend the gray color onto the tops of the foreground waves. I'm using a method where sometimes the brush touches the wet paint and sometimes it doesn't, making the soft edges random. I'm deepening the shadows in the wave with a combination of Manganese Blue Hue and Indanthrone Blue. See how the dark wave has some backwashes in it? I'm going to fix that with another layer of Indanthrone Blue. First, I wet the pigment to reactivate it. Drop in some Indanthrone Blue and then soften the bottom edge with clean water. I'm mixing up some brown color that will be the sand. And it looks darker now on the paper than when it dries. I'm also dropping in some Manganese Blue Hue, wet into wet. Later, I'll drop in some Indanthrone Blue. I'm mixing a very dark gray using Indanthrone Blue and Burnt Sienna to put into the waves. See how it helps to bring out the foreground crashing waves? By now, the composition is looking pretty complex, isn't it? But you saw how I tackled this by breaking the composition down into sections and working them one by one. Though you can also see that I go back to sections that need additional work. I looked at the painting and felt it was finished and even signed it, but I feel that the sparkling water in the background is competing with the crashing wave. Decided to do a unifying wash and to try to achieve a soft glow in the background. The colors are a blend of Phthalo Blue and Manganese Blue Hue. To get the soft glow, I brought out my secret weapon, Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. I wet it, squeezed it till damp, and started to scrub out certain portions of the background. I'm not trying to get to perfectly white paper here, which is possible with the magic eraser, just enough to get that soft glow. Now for the final touches. I'm using Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed-proof white ink to reestablish some of the sparkles on the water. This close-up shows where the masking fluid preserved the white of the paper. I can also see beautiful blending of colors that you can only get with watercolor. Thank you for watching how I painted crashing waves in watercolor. I hope you enjoyed this and learned something from it. Please give a thumbs up if you did. It really counts a lot when you do. It really helps my channel. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel where you see more demos and tutorials on watercolor. Don't forget to share, and I'll see you in the next one.